Hey everyone, welcome to the Insights segment of the Eye Care Marketing Insights, Innovation, and Impact live broadcast series with my very special guest, Erica Castner. I'm your host, Dr. Sandy Eveleth, and whether you're live with us now or watching the replay, we'd love to hear from you. Please drop us a comment or question below. So let me introduce my longtime friend, the queen of connecting and master of marketing, Erica Castner. For over 2 decades, Erica has helped business leaders increase their influence and impact to be more productive and purposeful in their work. In addition to being the CEO of the global personal brand development company, Castner Consulting and Coaching, she is also the creator of the Expand Your Brand Bootcamp Experience and the Personal Brand Accelerator. Erica is the host of Voices of Impact with Erica Castner podcast and has been featured as a guest contributor to over 200 podcasts, articles, and conferences, including USA Today, Thrive Global, Fox 4, ABC, CBS, the News Press Media Group, and Huffington Post. Wow, wow, wow. I am so excited to be speaking with you today, Erica. I've known you for many years when we first met in person through the prestigious Greater Fort Myers Chamber of Commerce, and our friendship has grown throughout the years. I also want to brag about a huge undertaking you and your husband, Ed, embarked on recently, the triathlons, and now training for an Ironman event. And I'm so impressed because you didn't even swim or know how to swim prior to these monumental events. I get what that is all about. And finally, another highlight of our friendship is that we've been guests on each other's podcasts. I've been a speaker for one of your summits, and we continue to geek out on all things marketing and making all the right connections. So, on that note, let's chat about how we can all be just one connection away of accomplishing our wildest dreams, and more specifically, how making all the right connections can help those with, either an eye care practice or any local small business. So, Erica, thank you, welcome, and take it away.
Why, thank you, my sweet friend. It has been a privilege to do this thing with you that we do in terms of driving business and creating impact in this world. So thank you, first of all, for just being my friend. And second of all, for having me on today's show. And so today I'm so excited that we're talking about connections, because if it isn't for the people in our centers of influence, there's a lot of things that could get left undone as it relates to more clients, more opportunities to expand your reach. And so I figured today we're going to probably go back and forth in this conversation today, Sandy, but you and I met through an association, and that is definitely one of my tips today. But for anybody that's watching this today, if you're leery about getting out there and meeting people, the biggest thing that I could share with you today before we jump into this conversation is that people want to help you. They just have to know how to help you. And so if you're sharing your big ideas, if you're sharing the things that you do respectively for your service or the products that you deliver, making sure that other people know about them, connecting and finding out how you can be of service to them first is going to let them open up to opportunities to help support you in your endeavors.
Absolutely. So give us an example. I walk into a chamber, meeting. I've never been before. I'm feeling a little nervous. You are one of the first people that would come and greet me. So if you're someone that does that, and again, even if you're not, if you're, a really smart thing to do is, even if you're not part of that organization, but you see someone that looks a little bit nervous about being in a location, what would that look like if instead of coming right over, shaking hands and talking all about yourself, you want to make that person feel comfortable? How would you get that information out of the person that you want to help? You wanted to help me. How would you approach me, and how would you say something like that?
That's a great question. The thing that really sparks conversation is by you instigating questions, you inviting opportunities for people to open up and share about them first. So it's going to sound counterintuitive, because especially if we're trying to grow our business, and if you're watching this today, I would imagine that is your goal, is to grow business, get quality clients, get others to talk about your business, refer you, and that sort of thing, and tell everybody how amazing you are, or your ideal clients how amazing you are. But the thing that you're going to want to accomplish is asking other people questions about their areas of focus. What are they there for at a networking event? If it's in person, I do realize that we're getting back to in-person events in an environment where you might be doing a virtual networking event. You can do the same thing. You can ask questions to find out. And this is the key thing that I want everybody to maybe jot down on a piece of paper if they can, or go back and replay it. But asking the question, how can I support you in your current areas of focus? Or what is it about this event that brought you here today? What do you need to accomplish? Who do you need to meet? And sometimes it's a little awkward to ask those questions when we're first meeting people, but especially at a networking event, it's almost set up as if it is designed to get that information out of people right away. And the more you know about people, the more you know about that exchange. So Sandy, let's just use it, you and I, for example.
Yes, definitely.
The more I know about the things that you're working on and how I can support you, and we did this in the pre-chat prior to jumping in here, I was learning all about the projects that you and Renee have got going on. And so it was like, oh, okay, based on that information, there's 3 people that I know I need to connect you with, but you and I have that relationship, and we also know, like, and trust each other. So there is that first, new connection piece.
Sure.
It's out of the way because we've been friends for many years. But for anybody that's wanting to create a partnership like Sandy and I have, where, we could just vibe and talk about all sorts of stuff and say, oh, okay, you need to meet this person. You need to meet this person. You need to meet this person. You have to start by extending yourself, getting uncomfortable or getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, asking questions of other people and finding out their general interests so you can help support them in their goals. And when you do that enough times, there will be people that will reciprocate and say, well, what are you working on? How can I help you? Why are you here at this event today? And that sort of thing. So,
well, and the big thing too that you do that's real clear, and you made that real clear, in the beginning, is there's a lot of this sort of conversation where we say, oh, first find out what they're doing. Sometimes it sounds too canned, but
right.
what you do, that becomes real genuine is you do the follow through. You'll say, oh, I know this person and this person, and you right away go in there and you will email or you'll text me, and it's and then you'll make the introduction. You'll do an email introduction where I feel like, okay, when Erica says she's going to introduce me to somebody, she has a connection, you actually make it happen. And you may even follow up and say, how did that go? How did things go? To make sure that connection actually got made. And I think too, it's hard for people. It's that vulnerability issue, going to like a Brene Brown kind of conversation, is that to ask for help is sometimes difficult. But when I tell people to do that, I reassure them that, listen, you're giving that other person a gift. When you ask for help, when I ask you for help, I'm giving you a gift to be able to give me that help. And it's just, you just continue to, I think, cement that relationship, elevate that amount of trust. And, it just goes to that know, like, and trust issue.
Yeah.
A question I have too is, let's say, because you are so connected, in the Fort Myers, Southwest Florida area, and you've grown way beyond that. But how did you first get connected? Is it because you went and worked for an organization where there were connections? Let's say you just moved to that area and you didn't know anybody. And, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, give a little bit of advice for someone that may be moving into a new area that wants, to get to know the local, not necessarily an online business or something.
Yeah, that is a perfect question. So I actually, and I think you know this about me, Sandy, but I moved to the Southwest Florida market 16 years ago, and I have been fortunate to really plant my roots here, but then extend those branches out to a lot of different circles of influence and other markets to have a global impact. So the things that I'm doing today are impacting my ideal client in 23 countries today. That didn't happen overnight. That was a 16-year, now it's an ongoing thing. But I do recall when I moved to the Southwest Florida area, I was not employed. I had started my career early on, and I've been doing some form of biz development for the last 2 decades, over 2 decades. So I know I was doing this since I was 5. It's hard to believe. Just kidding. Yes. But anyway, but I digress. So my career in the retail space ended abruptly. And it was just because the position that I had up in Illinois wasn't transferable. And then I found out the company didn't even have that position 6 months later. They eliminated it all across the board. So even if I had moved to Southwest Florida and got that position, I would have been out of a job 6 months later.
Wow. Sure.
So when I moved here, I was like, you know what? It's a good opportunity for me to just start anew and do something entirely different and challenge myself. But nobody was taking my calls. And this was back in 2005. So the Southwest Florida market was booming. And I decided that I would go into construction of all things. My former husband was in the construction field. And I knew that I just was turning in resumes everywhere, just somebody call me back, and nobody would.
Wow.
And I humbly went to, after about 6 weeks of this chaos, I humbly went to the only professional person I knew in Southwest Florida who happened to work for the builder who was building our home. And I said, I am desperate. Like, what is out there? I mean, there's so much industry happening here. I can't imagine that there's no opportunities for me to fit in. And she says, well, why don't you come to this? There's this women in construction event that's coming up Tuesday. Why don't you come to that with me? I'll be there. Anyway, Sandy, she invited me to it. And then the day that it was supposed to happen, she sends me a message and says, I have a headache. I can't go. And I thought, oh my gosh, I can't, what am I going to do? My one professional connection who was going to introduce me to all these people, she can't come now. And I'm going to have to wait until next month. And my former husband at the time said, no, you're not. You're going to go put on your most amazing rock star outfit, the thing that you feel the most powerhouse in, and you're going to go to that event. And I said, well, what am I going to talk to them about? And he says, well, just talk about whatever. Don't talk about needing a job. Just start conversations. Like, there's people in that room who will probably come over and compliment you on the thing that you're wearing. And I said, okay, well, that sounds interesting, I guess. So I'll flash forward and go to the punchline. I actually got a job that night. Got an opportunity to interview for a job that night, because sure enough, he was right. Even though we're not married anymore, he still was right about that little piece of advice. And because I had so many people coming up to me and complimenting me on the thing I was wearing. And it allowed me to say, oh, cool. Your purse is cute, or whatever it was, right? And it's a silly little thing. But it's that uncomfortable thing that if we could just put ourselves in an arena where we are doing something to attract some attention in a good way, it will invite people to come over to us. And I wasn't hunched over either. I mean, I was there. I felt confident because I was in my most favorite outfit. So I looked tall because I had, I am a tall person, but I had tall heels on. And so I think a lot of it has to do with your presence too. So for our newbies out there who are reluctant to get out there and do any kind of networking, what assets do you have right now? Can you rock a cool outfit, or do you have it sounds, again, super silly and superficial, but it's these things that people pick up on, and energy is everything. Write that down too. If you've got a good vibe about you and you're standing tall and you've got a smile on your face, you're more approachable. And when you can engage in a conversation with somebody and just chit chat about something that's as simple as cute purse or cute coat or whatever it is that you're wearing, it can spark the conversation to do amazing things. And I ended up getting a job interview that night, landed the job, and that brought me into the community and doing everything that I do today. I honestly did, Sandy. I'm not making that up.
That's cool.
Because I went in and did something way outside of my comfort zone and put myself in an arena to just be open to inviting people into my world.
Yeah. So recap, because there's a whole bunch of
There's so much in there. So much in there.
So I imagine you teach a lot of this as well from all the things that I mentioned that you do. So the first thing is you just enhanced the point that you made in the very beginning about asking for help.
Yeah.
Is you actually, before the meeting, you went to your friend that's in the construction industry and you asked for help. What can I do? If you hadn't started the conversation of asking for help, that never would have happened.
Exactly.
So it's, again, it's okay, people. It's okay. So that was number one. You asked for help. Number two, when the situation changed and you were worried, now it's like, oh, great. Well, I'm not going to go. Nope. Your ex-husband said you got to step out of your comfort zone. So we know that that's really important. Yeah. You got to step into the arena. We know that's really important, and just take a chance. And the other thing is, like you said, even if we're not feeling it, build up that energy, kind of take that Wonder Woman stance before you walk into the meeting. Yeah. And make something memorable about yourself, whether it's something that you wear, like you said. I mean, that's before you even say anything at the meeting.
Yeah.
You wear something, you take something, you bring something that makes you memorable and stand out. And that, already that's going to spark conversation. And I bet too, part of it, you probably already had some ideas of some conversation breakers that you could actually, questions or maybe not.
I didn't. I was so
Okay.
clueless about networking at the time. And so the other thing that I'm as you were talking and
Sure.
recapping my long story, and something else that came to top of mind is the only way you're going to get better is if you get to doing.
Yeah.
So anybody out there who feels awkward about going out there and strumming up new ideas for your business growth, it's going to feel uncomfortable as all get out right out the gate. But the only way that you're ever going to feel comfortable at it is if you keep trying it. And most people, especially in a traditional networking environment, aren't going to bite your head off. They're there to do the same thing, and they want to find people to connect with, converse with, find out how they can support each other, because that's how they're going to get stuff done. So if you're putting yourself in that arena, you don't know who's in that room until you go into that room and just start striking up conversations, even if it has nothing related to business. But if you can connect on some other level, and unfortunately people judge with their eyes first, right?
Right.
So, just making sure that you look presentable and you look polished and you look confident. Even if you were scared to death inside, like I was, I still looked the part. I still looked approachable, and people didn't want to just like pick me up. And, they wanted to engage with this, what they thought was a powerful woman. And I felt so scared, but I got more comfortable at it when I started doing it more. And I figured out all these nuances. And these are the things that I teach people today. It comes from you doing it and going through the motions and getting messy with it before you get polished with it.
Right. And like you said, energy is everything. Stand tall and smile. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest things that you can do to be approachable. People are going to know that you are somebody that, they're going to feel comfortable around you, and probably know too that 95% of the people there are thinking the same thing. They're probably just as nervous and, kind of hide back and wallflower-ish. But I think that's really important. I think that's great. So tell me, so that's what you did. And look at it as a practice session, that maybe the first 5, 10, 15 of those meetings, you're just practicing. You continue to improve. You observe, you watch how other people that you admire at those meetings, what are they doing? How are they extending that feeling of comfort, of wanting to be around them? That would be another tip, is just to kind of observe. But let's say, so you started to get real comfortable, you did the thing, you went to more meetings. What happened next that got you to that position of making more connections? And then we'll go into the tips that you have.
Yeah. So, for me, it was really just a matter of saying, okay, I'm in this room, so how can I add value to other people's lives? And meaning value, and that's a loaded word these days, because everybody says add value. And what I mean by that is getting to the point where you know enough about somebody else, and you are observing, and I love how you brought this up and teed us into this point nicely, Sandy, is that by observing what other people are working on, or asking those questions and being thoughtful about listening to what they actually have to say, if you commit to doing, let's just say that you commit to having one conversation with somebody random a day, somebody that's aligned with your goals, not like the person down the street that has nothing to do with your business, finding somebody that is somewhat synergy aligned with your business, or that you could mutually help each other in business, learning about their current areas of focus, how you can support each other. Even if you just said, that one question, what are you working on? And then saying, you know what, I just had a conversation with Sandy the other day, and her and I were talking about that same exact thing. I ought to connect the two of you together, and maybe the two of you can synergistically aligned. What that did for my credibility, Sandy, is that it reinforced my connection with that person, right? That I'm connected, the two people that I'm connecting, it was reinforcing that relationship, but it was also reinforcing subliminally that this chick is connected. She has other people in her center of influence. And, I by knowing her and knowing the things that she does, beyond that, she can connect, and I can utilize her as a resource. So for anybody that's listening to this right now, take heed to the fact that you do what you do, but the one thing that's going to make you stand out, for anybody that needs to figure out this magical listicle thing to help you stand out, when you start making connections to people and getting really clued into what other people are doing, and then saying, oh, hey, I need to connect Barb with Bob. Guess what? You do that enough times and you're going to get that reputation. Like I've got the reputation today of being the queen of, or the king of the connections. And that, my friends, is going to make you stand out.
Yeah.
So if you're whatever industry you're in the eye care industry, in the brick and mortar, what the retail space, whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to stand out because now you have a network of people that you can rely on. People are going to call you and say, hey, Sandy, who do you have? This is something I'm working on. And that just makes you more approachable, and it makes you more of a resource in the long run.
Oh, it does. So the for me to even say that, and I've said that for years, that you are absolutely the the queen of connecting. And, and like you said, that kind of elevates you to expert status. We talk a lot about that on the online world, influencers, et cetera, but it's the same thing in the offline world is, enough people hear, oh, you need to talk to Erica, you need to talk to Erica. All of a sudden it's like, oh, well, I have to know this person. And again, when you extend that hand and you help someone, the law of reciprocity is it is going to come back to you, whether it's with that person or somebody completely different that's heard about your reputation. Yeah. Really important.
For sure. And even with my husband, respectively. So Sandy, Ed. And so he is in a totally different space than I am, but he is in a very elite luxury type of brand in what he does. And so it requires him to have also connections as well. And what was fascinating was he's been doing the thing that he's been doing for years, but he started niching down about 6 years ago. And it was a very hard road at first, trying to get into this elite space. But once he started making those connections, reaching out, talking to people, connecting the dots for other people, all of a sudden now in other markets outside of Southwest Florida, but in LA, in New York, in Nashville, he is known as the guy in his industry, so if anybody's talking and they need his services, they're like, no, talk to Ed. He's your guy. So that's the reputation he's gotten because he's so good at connecting the dots.
Right. And it goes back way before there was any online it's not what you know, it's who you know or whom you know. It's just, it's absolutely, absolutely so true. And thanks. I've got a couple of optometrists that popped in and to say hi. And Daryl and I actually co-host a clubhouse room over there. So that's really nice. And Ansel, Dr. Johnson, he piped in earlier too about great information. So I really appreciate you.
Welcome, guys.
Putting the word. Yeah, exactly. So go ahead and dive into some of the tips. I know, you've got so much going on and you help so many people as a connector. What other kind of tips? You've dropped a ton of gems already about how to network correctly, but keep going. Tell me what else are you thinking?
Yeah, I think that beyond, so maybe some other intermediate or advanced strategies. So once you start building your base of connections, it's now a time for you to think about how you're going to leverage those connections. And one of my favorite ways to leverage networking connections is through the power of tapping into each other's platforms. And what I mean by that is, what can you do to co-collaborate on content creation that's going to help align your audience and their audience with each other's audiences to help expand your reach? And so I have found that the more I'm comfortable in-person rooms, it has helped me think about who I need to meet in virtual rooms or virtual opportunities. And when Sandy read my bio, and I've been featured at this point, I probably need to update my bio because I've been featured on over 300 publications now. And that's no accident. That was, being willing to talk at a Rotary Club, nothing against a Rotary Club, but like talking at a local event and talking about my expertise, because there are business owners in that room, but talking about something that was going to help my ideal customer in that room see what they need to do next to take their success to the next level. And it became evident that I was getting these speaking opportunities because of connections like you and I, right? Sandy, you and I would get on the phone And we'd be like, okay, so what's going on in your world? How can we help each other? And then, you were on a podcast, and then, hey, why don't you come? When you started your podcast, you were gracious enough to invite me onto your show. And that jump started my virtual opportunities. You were like the first person that ever invited me onto a podcast.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that's funny that you're just now finding the story out. But yeah,
let's stop and take a moment. That's awesome. I had no idea.
Take a moment. Breathe it in. But yeah, it really helped jumpstart that invitation. But again, that would not have happened if we didn't have the relationship that we did. That wasn't like we just met at an event and then 2 days later you're inviting me on the show. We had some longevity. You knew from my reputation, and I knew from your reputation, that it was going to be a quality product when we got done with it.
Right.
And so I think for anybody that's listening to this today, I think what you could think about is, what are those things that you can do to tap into other people's audiences? So could you go speak at their event? If they don't have an in-person event, do they have a podcast? Do they have a blog? Can you be a guest expert on their virtual platform, whether it's a blog, podcast, summit, a LinkedIn Live, finding those ways to say, I'm available, but you have to open up your mouth and say, I'm available to speak on these topics. And while we're thinking about this, Sandy, what I do want to impress upon people today is that it's not enough to just speak about the things that you're passionate about. If you're going to leverage your network and tap into other people's audiences through speaking opportunities, is just to be very strategic about what your end result is. So for our eye care professionals on here today, your end result is probably going to be getting more clients into your practice. So are you talking about things that are going to lend people to want to come to your practice? If you're talking about something that's unrelated to what you do, there's going to be a disconnect. Right. And I see this all the time, especially in professional service realm, like in that intangible space, where they just talk about all these random things that really have nothing to do with what they're doing. And it's not going to serve the person that's invited you to be on that show. It's not going to build that reputation on a stronger foundation. You're going to cause, not in a super bad way, but it's just not going to be as effective. And so just making sure you're thinking about those opportunities is really critical.
Well, and let's talk some more, because I call that the Dream 100. When you leverage someone else's platform, I mean, there's a lot of pieces to this. The huge benefit when, let's say you and I, it may not be true. It's not true for me. It may be true for you. But let's say each of us had 100,000 audience members. If I just go out by myself and start talking about, and again, I'm going to talk about things that are related to my ideal avatar, my ideal human, my ideal client, my ideal eye doctor. And it's more of a one-on-one. It's only going to be to my audience that's listening. But if all of a sudden I get interviewed by you, I'm on your summit, whatever, and let's say you are in the eye care industry, all of a sudden we now have 200,000 audience members, and you might blast out an email that all of a sudden, that the possibility is 100,000 more people are going to be able to see it.
Yeah.
So what I call, and I didn't coin the phrase, this goes way back. I think, I can't remember the original chat, and I can't remember his name, but I'll drop it in there. But anyway, he came up with it for a different purpose. But the idea is, instead of 1-to-1, where I might just reach a small number of people, it might be 1 to a million, 1 to many, of course.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then there's, and you also, not only what the value is to my audience, but what is the value? Why would you have me on your podcast? I have to add value to your audience. I can't just, it's all about me. I want to spread my word and my call to action. It has to be, how am I going to help your audience? And you have so much value and information when it comes to networking, because the eye care physicians, they need to get out into their local community, and they need to be networking to attract more and more patients into the practice. That is the main way that I did it when I co-owned a private practice. So, we can't stress enough the importance of getting in front of someone else's audience and someone else's platform.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. And one of the things I want to touch upon, Sandy, with what you just shared there, is that for a lot of our eye care professionals, or anybody that's in that healthcare arena who is serving a local market, and they think it's kind of silly to go put themselves on a podcast, because podcasts generally, or by nature, are going to have a bigger reach than your local market. what that actually does by providing, I'm working with a service provider right now who's in the medical space, and but we're working through that right now because she wants to get in front of more doctors. And so I shared with her that the only way that we're going to build credibility through the eyes and the lens of the doctor, no pun intended, but through their mind and just understanding that you're a credible resource, is by getting you on a few of these podcasts so they can hear about the things that you want to talk about. And they're like, oh, well, if she was on a podcast and she was interviewed about the things that she is an expert at, she must be a credible source. So it sends a subliminal message. So for anybody out there who's thinking that's a dumb idea, why would I be on a podcast? Well, what it does is it sends a message to your local base that this person's credible because somebody else talked to them, had a media opportunity. So don't throw that out the window. And I think if we're going to circle back to people that are really trying to focus on local presence, one of the things that you can do is go volunteer for an association or an organization that is aligned on some level with your goals. So I find that, United Way is a good place. I mean, this is not a plug for United Way per se, but they have a big outreach because they partner with other nonprofits, and they could probably help you find other nonprofits in your market that you're not aware of, that you could go, not necessarily volunteer your services, but just show up and be a vital resource in the community. And volunteering, when I first got to this area, that was another way for me. That's how I got the gig at the chambers, because I just sat on one of the chamber committees, and they saw me in action and they're like, we have a job for you. I mean, would you be interested in that thought of working for us one day? So I volunteered and they got to see my skill set, and then it opened me up to being hired there. But today I do the same thing. And now what it does is it opens me up to work with Fortune 300 companies, because guess who's sitting on the boards of these nonprofits? Probably your clients, probably the people that are going to refer you more clients. So don't be afraid to reach out on a local basis. Volunteering is a great way. Again, it's leveraging somebody else's audience because somebody else loves those nonprofits. Might as well get into the ecosystem of that nonprofit and figure out how you can support it. And then as a byproduct, you'll get things that you need out of it, but that's a time, well spent kind of a thing. But that is another tip that I would recommend.
Oh, it's huge. And Mario agrees with you. He said, brilliant advice, Erica.
Well, thank you for that.
I appreciate it. No, and it's true. And you did hint to this, but make sure that you're not just showing up. I remember with the local chamber meetings, it was, there were a lot of people that show up to the event, sit at the table, eat the lunch, chat with the person next to them, and they don't serve on any kind of committees. You have to get involved, because it becomes this thing where the executive director of the nonprofit, the people that really are dedicating themselves to this, and may be the CEO of a local bank or some other big corporation that's in your local community, they're paying attention. They know how busy you are. They know that, you are running your own business, but the fact that you're spending your valuable time, maybe away from your family, away from work, to volunteer at these organizations, that really, really stands out. I know that it did for us. And that, there were two things that really built our practice. It was community involvement, and then, doing one other marketing thing. But it really was that networking and getting involved in different positions. I mean, I was involved in a local children's organization, and I took on the role of fiscal agent. So they pay attention to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Very, very important. And it made sense because we were in the realm of providing a service specifically for children and children's vision.
And the other piece of that, really quick, I'll interject, is that if you're going into a thing and you're expecting a handout, and what I mean by that is that your hand is out and expecting to get the clients or the business because you're there.
Right.
People are going to pay attention to that too, and you'll build that reputation for being the one-sided shtick, right? Where you're only in it to win it for yourself and you're not there for somebody else. But a lot of my bigger clients that I worked with today came because I sat side by side with them in a volunteer capacity, never asked them, hey, can I be your person to do fill in the blank? Never asked them, but they got to see me in action, and I got to hang out with them on a, not daily basis, but on a time over the course of the year and a half, I got to work with them in various capacities. And then before you know it, they're in my inbox saying, hey, you know what? can we work together because I have this problem and I need to work with you. So, but I didn't come to the table and say, you need to work with me. It was doing these other things without asking for that handout. And then she assumes on some level that I could support her, and then we engage that conversation, and I could. And so those are really cool ways to, again, volunteering. It's a little bit more of a long stretch, but it is something that will help in the long run.
Right. And I agree with you that you can't your heart has to be in it. You can't, because you're going to burn out very, very quickly. And if that primary goal is to get business, it actually doesn't work. It's almost like the universe is speaking against you. And then the other point to that is you don't know when people are watching. It can be the simplest things. We've had this happen over and over with the movie. You just don't know who's paying attention, whether it's, online and social media or offline when you're going to these meetings and taking on a leadership role. You just don't know who's watching, and it can be very surprising at times. So that's a very cool point, very cool tip too.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Anything else?
Oh my goodness, girl!
I feel like we could gems already.
we could talk about this all day long. So let's see, what else did I write on my notes. I think the other piece of this too is for our eye care professionals, or any professional out there that's listening to this today. Don't be afraid to create your own opportunities for this kind of stuff. So even if you don't have time to do, let's say, somebody else's networking event, what can you do to reach out to people who are maybe already talking and marketing to your ideal customer? And then how can you set up a coffee date or something that's convenient for you, whether they come to you or you go to a neutral place, but you invite, let's just say, it's 3 to 5 other professionals who are somewhat aligned with the people you want to work with. And how can the 3 to 5, 6, 7, 8 of you come together and say, okay, what are you working on? How can I help you? What's going on in your market? Where are you having success? And I find that when you create your own opportunities to do that, you can curate the conversations, you can cherry pick it. Usually if you're going to somebody else's event, you're going into their space. So Don't be afraid to write down on paper, what are the 3 to 5 industries that are logically aligned with the clients who's already talking and marketing my customer. Finding out those industries and then saying, okay, who is in my professional circle of influence that is already in those industries? So let's start with your current network. And if you don't have anyone in your network, that's where you could go to LinkedIn and find out, okay, if it's an eye care professional, whatever industry is aligned with that, do a quick LinkedIn search in your area to find that resource. And again, don't come from a place of, I'm trying to get business from this person, but invite them to, hey, I thought that maybe there'd be some good synergies with the things that you have going on and the things that I have going on. And so let's at least have a conversation to learn how we can support each other and see where it goes from there. Because at the first meeting, it's not going to be a fistful of leads. It's going to be just an initial, are you cool? Are you cool? Okay, let's take it up a notch and let's figure out, who else is cool that we can, because that's how trust is built over time. It's not built and, just reaching out and assuming that person is ready to send over business or become a client. So just thinking a little more strategically about who you want to get in front of, just take the ball and run with it. Of course, by joining an association, that does help a little bit in the fact that you already have that mutual common ground. You're a part of XYZ association. And so you can really reach out to that person and say, hey, we're already part of this association. Why don't we learn about each other's areas of focus and how we can support each other, and then take it from there.
Absolutely. And that's that's kind of in that same line of the Dream 100, is that you do have some similar values and you can help each other. It's not a competitive scenario. Obviously, it's a collaborative scenario. I just want to bring up Mario. He said another great statement. There's no greater expression of your strategic ability and creative talent than the selfless acts, volunteer and showcasing your servant leadership philosophy. Erica Castner nailed it and has the practical experience and outcomes to be the model for others. Here. I highly agree.
Thank you, Mario. Awesome stuff. Good.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's really, and again, it is servant leadership. And again, when you're volunteering, you're out there doing it, it becomes crystal clear who's being opportunistic and who is actually out there because they care about it and care about what they're doing.
Yeah. And, people pay attention to that too. And in fact, it came up in conversation not too long ago with somebody, and it didn't affect anybody on a local level, but I was having a conversation with a girlfriend of mine who was saying, oh, I'm thinking about so-and-so and approaching her about this. And I had to have that tough love kind of conversation with that person to say, I wonder what that, so tell me a little bit more about that. How is that working? How did you come to that conclusion? What do you like about that person? Because honestly, that I know that person's reputation is not necessarily the most like collaborative.
Sure.
And so sometimes you have to tread water, or you tread lightly on some of that stuff, because I also didn't want to be that person to be like, you shouldn't do, collaborations with that person. But I wanted to get that invite conversation with my girlfriend who was thinking about vetting this other person for this opportunity. I wanted to invite her to express why she thought that was a good fit, or what was her motivation behind that. So I could come up with, instead of knocking this other person out of the water, I could hand over maybe some additional solutions for my friend who was currently going through the vetting process on a really big project. And so instead of bad mouthing somebody, I just said, if you're not through the vetting process yet and you're open to taking some other suggestions, here are some other suggestions I have for you. And I'm happy to, make those introductions. So, just for anybody that is like finding themselves in that situation where they're like, oh, you don't want to work with that person, they're a terrible person. Don't go there. Be classy. Yeah. Ask questions of that person, why, what they're looking for, why they're going that decision, or why they're going that route. And then offer up, if you can, now that you have some more information, you can offer up other solutions or introductions to people that they might want to consider for those opportunities. So I don't know why that came up in the conversation, but
no, but that's really good, because part of the podcast issue is, and you understand this, Renee understands this, a lot of people that I know understand the power of connections. But there is a little bit of a responsibility that when you are making a recommendation, you better know, this is a little bit of a side of what you're saying, but you better really know that person's reputation, because I was in a situation like that where I hadn't vetted the other person as much as I should have. And it became crystal clear. And this was early on in my making all the right connections, that, okay, I see now what needs to happen is you really need to vet those people that you are going to be recommending to make those kind of collaborations. But I love your point that you add on top of that is, if you don't want to make that recommendation, is find out from your friend or the person that wants that connection, find out why, what is at the root of why you think that would be a good connection. Because I'm sure probably 9 out of 10 times, you're going to actually find a better connection for that person that there is no way they would have known that. Yeah. And that's the power of all of your connections, because you'll know who's a better connection.
Yeah. And the vetting process generally is going to take, again, time. That's the thing that keeps coming up in this conversation today. So networking in general is a time, it is time consuming, but it's not time taxing in a way that is going to deter you from your goals. It's only going to enhance your goals. You are going to kiss some frogs. I'm not going to lie to you. There are going to be times where you will run into people and you just know that they're self-serving. But just remember that that's all part of the process too. And not everybody's jerks. There are kind people out there. There are people who are willing to help. And sometimes you're just going to run across a bad apple or two. But that is a lesson for you to learn. And the thing that I like to say a lot is the data is in the doing. I think I mentioned it earlier. The more you do these things, the more information you're going to get about yourself, what you like, what you prefer as a leader, as a professional. And so when you invite yourself to have more of those opportunities, you're going to learn more about yourself in that process and what you're looking for and how you can align with people that are ready to help you.
Sure. And I think part of that experience process is learning how to ask the right questions. Because again, by you saying that and bringing that up about asking her why she thought that person was going to be the best, it's just really digging. You kind of go deep and then wide. You keep digging, and then dig a little bit more sideways, so to speak. But it's listen, ask. It's really important. And I forget what the saying is, but about asking the right questions is more important than getting the answers sometimes. So you've really learned that skill, and I appreciate that, because that takes a lot of time. Again, I think just going to a meeting and being armed with this information that you've already brought up is so advanced compared to what I see when I, go to these meetings. And, translate that to the online world. You and I both know some of these messages that we get behind the scenes, the DMs that we get, is just like that horrible person that goes to a network meeting and they're just, they can't wait to stuff their business card to you.
Right.
And it's happening online. And it absolutely astounds me that people didn't learn the etiquette, just etiquette of just hang back a little bit, get to know them, ask those questions that you were mentioning earlier. How can I help you? How can I serve you? Without it being just a self-serving kind of thing. Like you genuinely want to help them and add value. That we need to take this online. We need to have that same etiquette and behave accordingly. It amazes me. I think there's somebody out there that has a course for people that do web design that just has the same exact script, because I keep getting that from some of the
and those just immediately go into the file accordingly file, which is delete. So I do not have time for it. I used to address it in my early days because I thought maybe I'm helping a person out. But honestly, if they don't have the couth and the etiquette to disrespect my inbox like that, I immediately block. By. So if that is a strategy that you're using, or you're listening to a guru right now that's telling you to do that, you are wasting your time and you're also diminishing your reputation. So more importantly, right? I mean, because we can't get time back, but we certainly, if we've damaged our reputation, it's so hard to come back from that. We can always find pockets of time, but the reputation bit is hard to come by. Real quick, Sandy, as you were talking about the questions, a good tool for any of our listeners today who are wanting to maybe think about thoughtful questions or enhance their communication.
Sure.
One of the books that saved my life in this regard, in all areas, not just business, but even in my marriage, was Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. And if you've never read the book, it's a fascinating read. He's a former FBI agent, I believe, and like an interrogation. Not interrogation, but what's the word I'm looking for? Where there are intense situations where there's a hostage, like that was the kind of stuff that he was involved with. And so he had to learn very quickly how to talk people off of these metaphoric and sometimes physical ledges, if you will, to get things resolved without killing people. And it's a fascinating book. He's got a whole chapter on, I won't spoil the punchline, but what and how questions and how powerful those are. If we can begin questions with what and how, it generally gets people to open up to us in a way that we can then lead to other questions that'll help them, help understand where they're coming from and how we can support them in the future. But Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss.
Okay, cool. I will definitely get that. That's awesome. And I did get a nice comment from Dr. Johnson that he mentioned that he is always engaged with his community. And I've seen that, and I've talked with a lot of different optometrist clients or non-clients, and they do understand the power of that is exceedingly powerful, even if it's just, with your kids' soccer games and just showing up all the time, being there, et cetera. So gosh darn, I had another question and I can't think of it. It had to do with what we're, no, don't be sorry. No. I love that about the book. I think that's fantastic. I think, just the power of being able to ask the right questions. Because, when you go into a meeting, again, whether you're talking online or offline, is to be able to engage someone really quickly when you might only have 30 seconds or 60 seconds is such a, again, you're going to be way ahead of the pack even if you just find out a little bit about what the meeting is going to be about, if there's a topic or something, to have, a few questions at the ready, just so that builds your confidence and makes you feel pretty good. And I did remember the question. Nice. So, a lot of times, and this was way back when we first started, when I first, started the practice that I co-owned in the past, is a lot of people didn't think that LinkedIn was a good place to showcase and to post and whatnot. And I'll tell you that most of my local patients actually came from LinkedIn. They did not come from Facebook, did not come from other social media platforms. So I continue to be a huge proponent of do not neglect LinkedIn. It's a real easy way to search out your patients locally. The search capabilities, even for the free plan, is absolutely amazing to, find the C-suite, find the CEOs of the local banks, not necessarily the big box, but the local banks and, all these local corporations is really important. And it's a way for you to find out about that person and maybe they are an executive director of a local community association. So you can get a lot of information from LinkedIn about that person before you even ever meet them. So just to slide in a little bit of a tip there.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great tip, Sandy. And something else that I'll echo on that remark is when you are at networking events, one of the things that I don't even collect a business card anymore. I just don't. I mean, they take up too much. They shouldn't take up too much room in my purse, but they weigh me down. So I just don't do it. But what I do instead is if I find that it's somebody that I'm not connected with yet, I want to learn more about them and I want to continue the conversation, I will right there on the spot pick up my phone and say, are you on LinkedIn? Is it okay if we connect there? So it is a great way to, again, reinforce another connection on LinkedIn, but then also whatever content you're sharing or whatever things that you're doing on LinkedIn, those people, if they begin to follow you too, will start seeing that content. And it's another way to stay top of mind, sneaky way to stay top of mind for those people that you're seeing in in-person events. Or if you met online as well too, you can still leverage that same principle by making sure that you're staying connected on LinkedIn, because there's a lot of professional goodness that's happening on there. And if you're engaging, they're going to more than likely see that engagement and you'll remain more top of mind than trying to, not connect with them on LinkedIn or another platform.
Right. Well, and you probably already know this, but there's a really cool trick is when you pull up your LinkedIn, there's a little QR code and you can both tap into it and each one of you can click and I'll when I redo this video, I'll do a little demo of that, but it's really kind of cool. I actually had a marketer. I was at one of the eye care events and he didn't know about it. So I was teaching him how to use his LinkedIn QR code. And another cool thing, you can create little business cards or you can have on your lanyard, you can have your QR code for LinkedIn so that people can quickly connect with you there. So that's kind of cool. And to your point, it's exactly why I'm doing these live broadcasts primarily on LinkedIn. They show up in a couple of other places as well, but I absolutely love the platform. And I keep putting content out there to show my eye care providers that I know how to market their practices. I want them, I'm giving them a ton of free content because I'm just demonstrating that I am an expert in the field of marketing for the eye care industry. And it's just that content. And then the other thing that you quickly said is the engagement. Any LinkedIn genius, expert, guru, whatever you want to call them, will tell you that you need to get in there and engage. And it's the same thing offline when you go to the meetings. You want to make sure that you're engaging with others. But when you're online, is get into those comments. Don't just say, hey, cool post, love the picture. You want to get in there and give some thoughtful comments and get a conversation going right into the comments. And it really helps the person that posted for you to do that. It elevates their algorithm, gets them seen by more of their audience and your audience. Again, part of that Dream 100, you're now popping up in both audiences, both the person that posted and also in your own feed.
Yeah. So for sure. That is such a great analogy that you just gave there, and really understanding that power of connectivity through that particular platform, LinkedIn. It is just a wealth of information and a wealth of intel for you. And if you're engaged and plugged into it, it is going to serve you. Again, it's a little bit of a longer game, but all of this stuff is not meant to be just a quick drive-by. It is really meant for you to just immerse yourself into it. And you're going to be stronger. You're going to be a stronger leader. You're going to be a more respected leader because you're taking the time with it versus just trying to get in your gain and then bounce out of it. So,
right.
Yeah.
Very cool. Wow. We could go on and on, right?
I know, right? We have that way about us, sister.
Man, we could do a show for sure. Is there now I've got your website scrolling along the bottom. How would you like to help people? My audience out there, it's not just the eye care profession. What do you like to do for people? Again, behind the scenes, they don't realize you are already asking me, how can I help? What can I do? Who do I need to connect you with?
Yeah.
So who's your, ideal human, and how would you be able to help them, and how can they reach out to you?
Yeah. So thank you for that question. My ideal human is somebody that's trying to position their message into more audiences. So meaning that I'm not necessarily the person, I do have a global brand company, but in the specifics of what I do, it's taking what they know in their expertise And how do they build a talk around that? How do they leverage some of those talking points with their social media platforms to enhance their message and get that in front of more eyeballs? And doing that on a wash, rinse, and repeat kind of a way, because the more times people see your brand, statistically speaking, it takes 5 to 12 touches with your brand before people will take the next step. And that's not even becoming a client. That might be simply just inquiring online or picking up the phone. And then they still have to go through that same cycle again to learn what's the next step. So content creation, but more importantly, what's your message and how do we amplify that with the people that you need to get in front of? So that's who I ideally like to help. Anybody that's trying to amplify their expertise and their message through speaking opportunities is a good resource for me, a good introduction for me. And the way I can help people who might not fit into that track or who might not be ready to reach out to me yet, which if we're just meeting for the first time, I get why, because you need 5 to 12 touches with me, is to go check out my podcast. So it's over at ericacastner.com/podcast. Okay. I have a ton of resources over there that you can listen in your earbuds for free that will help you start thinking about how you're going to expand your reach, put your message out there in a more thoughtful and compelling way, how to communicate with more confidence. And there's all sorts of, we've got about 67 episodes. I do interview people as well. Sandy is on there. I don't exactly remember the exact episode that Sandy's on, but Sandy's on there. And I'll have to get that to you, Sandy. So we'll put that in the show notes or something.
Sure.
But
I probably have it on my site.
You probably have it too. Yeah, I should have been more prepared for that. But that is the easiest way that people can continue the conversation with me and learn a little bit more about what you're doing and reach out. I mean, comment on those podcasts or, there's contact information on that website too that you can reach out to me. And I'd love to learn what you're working on and how I can continue to support you in your growth as well.
Appreciate that. That's just, again, and I know every time we kind of geek out. Anytime
we do.
That's for sure. So I really appreciate you do help. You do absolutely walk the talk or walk the walk and talk the talk. There's no question about it.
Thank you.
And I so appreciate you for that. And I know we're going to chat a little bit more offline.
Offline, yeah.
It's awesome. But listen, thank you to those watching live or on the replay. Thank you, Erica, for taking the time out of your busy
welcome.
day.
Thank you so much, Sandy, for the opportunity. You are an amazing host. I love you dearly, my friend, and you would just keep crushing it and doing all the things that you're doing out there to make a true impact in this world. You rock, my friend.
Aw, thank you. Now I'm going to cry.
Oh, don't
cry. Well, I'm your host, Dr. Sandy Eveleth. As you all know now, your eye care marketing OD. And as a certified master marketer, I'm doing my little plug here, Erica, in case you didn't notice that.
Love it.
And certified digital business consultant. I love helping eye care professionals attract more ideal patients to maximize their wealth, time, and practice growth. And if you'd like to book an innovative strategic marketing session with me, you see it up there on the above us here, but it's at drsandyeveleth.com /book Dr. Sandy. And thanks again. And I look forward to seeing you all next time.